bad movies, bad life advice, and even worse life decisions. We cover it all here on the Life with Kenny podcast. I'm your host, Kenny. Grab a beer, sit back, and relax for this week's episode, because things are about to get weird.
What's an all-American girl like you doing with a geek like this?
Forgiveness is divine, but never pay full price for late pizza.
Fuck me gently with the chainsaw.
Jimmy was off the hook. I know you really don't listen to Slipknot.
Judge Reinhold.
You are listening to a Life with Kenny podcast.
Not quite my tempo. It's all good. No worries. Here we go.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Life with Kenny podcast. I am your host, Kenny, and I am joined once again by my lovely girlfriend, Melissa.
Hello.
Thanks for being here, babe.
Oh, you're welcome.
So today, we are going to talk about something that might get a little graphic and a little creepy. So,
graphic?
I don't normally do trigger warnings, but if you get scared easily or you get triggered, I'm just going to give you a heads up and say, hey, this is probably not for you.
It's not scary, is it?
We're talking about two different stories today, one of which is a recent one that's recently gone viral, and the other one is the story that was the inspiration for last week's movie that we watched, Orphan. So, with that, we are going to tackle this new story first. So, Melissa, I just sent that to you recently. I've been kind of telling you not to read it until now.
I literally just read it 2 minutes ago.
Just because I wanted it to be fresh and kind of surprising for you. And also, I didn't want it to spoil the twist in Orphan for you before we watched it. So, we're going to talk about this now. So, over the past week, I don't know, have you seen it other than me posting it?
I saw it on Snapchat too, but I didn't read it.
So it's starting to blow up. I feel like by the time this comes out, everybody will have heard of this. I think the first time it was mentioned was on the Daily Mail, because I think they
that's where I saw it on Snapchat.
I think they did an exclusive interview with the mother. I think that's why it started blowing up. But the original Daily Mail one, I think, was posted September 23rd. So it was just about a week ago. Mm-hmm. So the article that we have here that we're going to be basing most of this off of, I want to say that a lot of this, none of it's been like proven or anything yet. So I don't think I know anybody that knows concrete that all of these are facts. But the story nonetheless is pretty interesting and creepy. So buckle yourself up. So this story is called Exclusive. She Tried to Kill Us. Indiana mother who adopted 6-year-old Ukrainian girl with dwarfism has been charged with abandonment, but claims her quote-unquote daughter was found to be a 22-year-old sociopath masquerading as a child. That headline grabs everybody's attention. If you were just scrolling through like the normal news feed, Melissa, and you saw that pop up from a pretty reputable news source, what would you click on it?
Well, I didn't. So
no.
No. There's just so many outrageous stories on Daily Mail that I don't really click on anything.
Yeah,
I just look and see what's in the news, and I'm like, okay, whatever, what people are talking about. Like, I don't actually go into depth.
That's fair. You've known me for over a year and a half, so I think it's safe to say that you would know this is right up my alley.
You click on everything.
And
you deep dive.
True crime and stuff like that is creepy. And that's why I wanted to do this podcast, is to find weird things like this and tell people about them. Because I feel like there's a lot of really interesting things out there people don't know about. And it's kind of a shame. So we're going to talk about this. So the mother, the woman who adopted this little girl, her name is Christine Barnett. And she was married to a guy named Michael Barnett. Okay, so the two of them, I'm basically doing this loosely off the article and off of memory from stuff that I read and heard. So the Barnetts, they have 2 kids already. They have 2 boys, and one, I believe, was born with autism. Okay, yes. So I'm going to set this up for you, Melissa, because I don't know if you know any of this. Actually, I don't know if most people who've read this story know any of this, but their son, who was born with autism, they were told that he's never going to be able to talk. He
Or be with social people.
Oh, so you do know a little bit about
I
this.
just read it.
Oh, I didn't know if this posted it in the art. This said that in the article.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, he was not supposed to do anything, and Christine Barnett started homeschooling him.
Mm-hmm.
And really quickly, they learned that he actually was very intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he wrote a dissertation paper before the age of 12.
He was able to get into a university.
Super interested in learning and stuff, and became super smart. And I think she ended up writing a book about raising a child with autism and how you can overcome stuff like that. And
I think it's called The Spark or something like that.
Yeah, it is. Jesus Christ, you have more information than I do, and you just read it. So she became a best-selling author, right? So she's pretty reputable already. And her and her husband decided that they wanted a third kid.
Wasn't it an emergency adoption?
Okay, so we're going to get there. So they wanted to have a third kid, so they were thinking about adopting. So they put the feelers out.
And someone came to them and said, we have this kid.
Well, kind of. So she wanted to adopt because she couldn't have kids anymore, physically. Mm-hmm. So they basically put the feelers out to adoption agencies, and then they basically were contacted, and it said, hey, this is an emergency adoption. And I don't know what that means.
Yeah, me neither.
Because that sounds kind of suspect.
Especially if she's coming from the Ukraine. There might be conflict wherever she was coming from, or her parents
she wasn't.
Well, then why is it called an emergency thing then?
This is the thing, is this little girl was adopted from a care home or something like that. I don't know the details about that. From an emergency adoption, and they were taking her out of another home, another family that she was adopted by. So she was already adopted by a family.
Well, why do they call it an emergency adoption then? If there's
That's
nothing
what I'm wondering.
Threatening her or something.
That's what I'm wondering, if it's something similar to this, where did the family have a tragic house fire or something, and they couldn't take care of her anymore? Something suspect that maybe she was a part of?
It's when I Google emergency adoption, it all comes up with refugees and stuff.
Right. So what I don't understand is she was adopted in an emergency adoption from another family who had already adopted her. Okay. So in the story itself, that sounds a little fishy to me as it is. So they adopt this little girl. What's her name? Do you remember?
Natalia.
Yeah, it was Natalia
Grace.
So Natalia Grace, she was 6 years old when they adopted her in 2010. Mm-hmm. And they were told that she was born in Ukraine, and she joins the family, and quickly they all start to get along. I think that the family even took her to Disneyland and stuff while they were in Florida, and she started getting acclimated and whatever with the family, and then she started acting up. So most kids act up by throwing tantrums or whatever. You even hear disturbed kids are drawing weird pictures, but some of the things that are red flags to this family that pop up are this 6-year-old girl starts writing stuff on the walls in body fluids. I don't know what that's supposed to reference, if it's blood, if it's shit, or what that would be, but she starts writing stuff on the walls in body fluids. She starts threatening family members, drawing pictures saying, "This is me killing you," telling the parents that she's going to murder them while they sleep. This is a 6-year-old kid.
Standing over them, watching them in the sleep.
Yeah.
In the night, I mean.
Also, so the parents started doing what you'd normally do for a disabled kid. You bathe them and whatever. Immediately they start seeing some red flags. They're okay, this 6-year-old has full pubic hair, which is, I've never heard of that.
No, not for a 6-year-old. I also read that she kept throwing away her bloody pants because she kept
getting her periods, which means that she was trying to hide it from them.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that's like a red flag. Also, when they first adopted her, they were told that she wasn't able to walk because of something that she had. So they carried her everywhere. And I guess this is a story that I heard on the My Favorite Murder podcast. So if you guys want to do a bit more diving into that, you can. But apparently the family took the kids to the beach and they were unpacking the car, and the boys ran towards the water, and the little girl was trying to do it too. And they were like, no, we have to wait for our parents. You can't go in. And she just got up and ran into the water when they were basically told she couldn't walk. Mm. So they're like, well, that's kind of a weird red flag. Like,
could she speak English?
Yeah. So what ends up happening?
How?
So she speaks English. She's 6 years old. I think this happened between she was 6 and 8 is where most of these stories happen. So she speaks English. The mother starts to get like a little bit like suspicious about it. So she starts doing things to like kind of check, like something you would imagine in a horror movie. So they're like, hey, friend who moved here from the Ukraine, who speaks Ukrainian, do you mind coming over and speaking Ukrainian to my daughter and seeing if she understands you? Like, so the friend comes over and starts talking to the little girl. The little girl has no idea what she's saying. And she starts saying, oh, you're from the Ukraine? Where are you from, little girl? And couldn't tell her anything about it.
Oh, so she doesn't even speak Ukrainian?
She doesn't even have a Ukrainian accent.
What the heck? So she was living in the Ukraine and something happened to her family or whatever.
No, it says she was born and stuff in the Ukraine. So I haven't seen anything to say where she came from when they adopted her. I just know that they picked her up in Florida. So I think this is the biggest thing is people are trying to do investigation like with this girl's backstory, because her birth certificate said she was born in Ukraine and stuff too. It said she was born in Ukraine in 1992, but later on they found another birth certificate.
92, she'd be the same year younger than you then. In 2010, she wouldn't have been 6 years old if her birth certificate said 92.
Well, this is the the birth certificate that they ended up finding, maybe it was 2002 or something like that, but the birth certificate they ended up finding said she was born in 89.
So even older. Right.
Which is even more like red flags, okay? So this is all just the weird stuff we're throwing out there. So the parents, Christine and Michael, start getting weirded out by this. They take her to doctors to get checked out, and they're like, we have no idea how old this girl actually is. She has some form of dwarfism. We would like to know how old she is. Like, she seems very intelligent for her age. Can you guys do any tests? And one of the doctors says, yeah, we can do like some sort of bone density test, where it'll give us an idea, because people's bones start to do a certain thing at a certain age. So they do a test.
Yeah, they can check from like the fusions and stuff in everyone's bones.
Right.
Because it all happens at a certain time.
So they do a test, and they're like, your 8-year-old daughter's at least 14 years old. At the least. And they're like, okay, well, this is a little strange. Like, I don't know why she wouldn't tell us that she was older, or like, because she doesn't have any like mental issues from what they can tell. So they're like, okay, well, we know she's a teenager. Let's start treating her like a teenager. Like, from what I understand throughout this whole process, the parents were at least trying to be helpful and take care of this girl that they adopted, regardless of how strange it is, how weird she was acting. Yeah. They took her to a psychologist. They even checked her into like a mental institution for a bit to be under like surveillance, just to kind of get an idea of like where she was at, because she was saying she was like hearing voices and stuff too. So they were doing their best to like take care of her. She gets out of the mental institution. They have proof from, I think there was like 2 other doctors did tests proving that she was over the age of 18, which means that she's an adult. So what the parents did is they basically put her into like this house, I think, that they can go into after they get out of a mental institution.
Her birth certificate from Ukraine said 2003.
Okay, maybe that's what it was. So they put her into this, I think it's like a halfway home for people who come out of mental institutions to like help rehabilitate them into society. And within a couple weeks, she gets kicked out of that because she's causing too much trouble. I don't know what that means. I haven't read anything about the detail, like if she was assaulting other people or what was happening, but she got kicked out. So the parents are like, okay, we got to try something else. So what they do is I don't know how you would do this, but they get her a social insurance number, which I thought that was like, I thought you needed like a super legit birth certificate for that.
Oh, I don't know.
So I think they probably used her one that had 1989 on it to do it. They got her social insurance number or whatever. The mom got her an apartment. They paid for it a year in full. Got her all set up. They got her like food stamps. They got her social security checks coming in, all this stuff, right? Disability checks. She was fine to be living on her own. They tried keeping in contact with her, and they just lost contact with her. That was that, right? So the family's like, okay, well, there's not much we can do about this. We set her up to like succeed as best as she can as an adult, because that's what she is. And she knows where we are if she needs us. So they're like, okay, well, our son, who's like a genius, got into a school in Canada for something that he really wants to do. So the family got up and relocated without her. So the reason this is in the news now is because in 2010, apparently some of the bone density tests that were done on Natalia concluded that she was actually 8 years old. So there's proof that one of the tests says that she's 8, but there's 2 or 3 other tests that say that she's older than 18. So this is where the confusion comes in. So an arrest warrant was issued for the parents. They arrested them. They interviewed them. The parents are now out on bond. So this girl right now is, I think she'd probably be a teenager now regardless, or she'd be in her 20s.
2003, she would be 16, wouldn't she?
Yeah, I don't know, but she would be
15
about
or 16.
16. But regardless, the parents are in shit, right? Like, they basically just fucked off and left this girl that they adopted and don't know where she is, right? So they brought them in to be like, okay, let's figure this out. If she's 16, we're going to try you guys for negligence because you were supposed to take care of this child and you pieced out and left her to fend for herself at like 10 years old.
Yeah.
If she's not and she's an adult, whatever. Like, she did some psychotic shit. She's got some mental health problems. Let's figure that out. They don't know the extent of the mental health problems. They don't know how serious it is or why she'd be faking this identity. So they're like, let's bring everybody in. They can't find this girl anywhere.
Really?
Cops can't find her. Nobody can find her.
This is right now?
Right now. The parents are kind of on trial right now. Like, they're waiting to get her testimony to find out what the fuck is going on. Because there's experts that are saying she was a child. There's experts saying that she wasn't. These parents left because they were terrified of her because she was threatening to kill them. There's another incident, too, that I didn't bring up where the mother said one time she caught the little girl pouring bleach into the mother's coffee. She was like, what are you doing? And the little girl just smiled at her and said, I'm trying to poison you. Like, that's fucking crazy behavior you need to watch. And these people just kind of left her.
Yeah.
So nobody knows what she's doing now, where she's doing, if anything bad's happening, if she's doing this to other people, if she's pretending to be a child somewhere else.
Right.
Because she's not from the Ukraine. She doesn't have an accent. She doesn't understand Ukrainian. She was threatening to kill these people. She is gone now. So what's the situation? Like, it's such an interesting thing. Like, where would she be? Cops can't find her. Nobody can find her. Nobody knows where she is. So That's what it is so far.
Does anyone, is anyone saying anything? Like, does anyone have theories at all?
Well, let me ask you. I'm going to show you pictures of this little girl, and I want to know what you think if she is a child or an adult, just based off of the pictures that we have access to. Just from what you hear right now, what do you think the situation could be? Do you think she would be a child or an adult?
Well, I don't know. But, so she came from the Ukraine. Doesn't mean that she had to be, her parents were Ukrainian and, spoke Ukrainian. They could have moved there from somewhere else. And she was just, there when they happened to, leave her. Or, if they died and then she went into the foster care.
Right.
And they couldn't keep her. So that's why she was this emergency adopted to the States.
But 6 years
But
later?
then, huh?
6 years later?
What do you mean?
How do you live somewhere 6 years without learning the language or getting an accent from it?
Well, if her parents lived there for 6 years and they were speaking English? Or, what if they lived somewhere else and then moved there? And then, dropped her off at a foster care place?
Right, but even if she was in foster care for 6 years, she would have to learn Ukrainian.
How do we know it was she was in there for 6 years?
Because her birth certificate was from the Ukraine.
Okay.
Which means she was born in the Ukraine. Apparently.
Okay. Well, then it's a fake.
Well, that's what people are confused about. Is this mom making all this stuff up because she wanted to get out of taking care of, a disabled child? Or is this all true and some weird fishy-ass scam was going on? Here are the pictures of Natalia Grace.
Well, then where is the girl then?
So this is Natalia Grace in September 2012. It said her original birth certificate made her 9, but the court would later determine she was 23 when this picture was taken. So looking at that picture, what are your thoughts? My immediate thing is to look at her hands and her arms. Because I've seen children with dwarfism. I've also seen adults with dwarfism. It's kind of hard to tell, right? It's hard to make that judgment call. She could go either way in my mind. And I think that's why this is blowing up so much.
Yeah, I don't know.
What do you think?
I don't know.
The other issue, too, is, the courts say she's 8. The courts also say she's not. They have certificates that say she's one age. They have certificates that say she's another. Apparently, this website has proof that she's an adult and was an adult the whole time. But, yeah, I don't know. Oh, yeah, also, the mom claimed that Natalia tried pushing her into an electric fence at one point.
Mm-hmm, right.
And threatened to stab the family while they slept. Which, you adopt a kid and they start doing that shit. We were just talking about that watching The Orphan.
Mm-hmm.
You'd want to get the fuck out of that situation.
Yeah.
So it's tough because if it's real, I can kind of empathize with the parents. But also, part of me feels guilty feeling that way because what if she was just a child that was having mental issues?
Uh-huh.
So, if you guys are interested in that, you should keep an eye on that because that's going to be a real big story over the next couple of weeks. If you want to find it, you can look up Christine Barnett, Michael Barnett, and Natalia Grace, and it'll probably pop up. I'm hoping we'll get updates in the next couple of weeks about where Natalia Grace is. Maybe get some more info about her backstory. Maybe she has some insight. Maybe she wants to come out and talk and let people know, hey, I genuinely believed I was a kid at that time. Maybe she knew she was an adult and was, just trying to get American citizenship. Right? It's tough. What would the reasoning be? But then again, why would you be threatening people who take you in?
Yeah. I don't get it at all.
What are you looking up now?
Pictures of her.
It's if you guys look at pictures, it's really hard to make a judgment call.
You just can't tell.
On age. So yeah, keep an eye out on that. I'll come back with some updates if any happen, so you can tune back in and see from there. But so Melissa, we just watched The Orphan. So for listeners, that would have been last week. And the reason people are losing their shit is because this story has a lot in common with that, where they adopt a kid that's actually an adult. Mm-hmm. It's almost unbelievable, right?
Right.
Another thing is like, who's stupid enough to fall for that scam?
Anyone. Like, they look like a kid.
Right.
They're acting like a kid. The only way that you can tell is that they're being psycho creepy, and then they, like, pull this, like, oh, I'm gonna seduce the father bull crap.
Right.
That's the only way we would know.
Are you ready to get creeped out?
Yeah.
Because I have another story for you guys. This is the story of the Mauerova family, aka what was it? Kurim Case. I think that's what you read.
Barbara Kurim.
So the Kurim Case, aka the Mauerova family, was the inspiration for the movie Orphan. I'm going to read you a little bit of this stuff and tell you about this story, okay? Mm-hmm. So in May 2007, imagine this. You and me just had a kid, okay? I'm at home, and I'm setting up a new baby camera in the kids' room. I'm trying to get it to work on the TV, and it's not working for whatever reason. Signals are getting all mixed up. I hit it a couple times, and something pops up on the TV. What pops up on the TV is the image of a child, the age of about 6 or 7 years old, bound with his arms and legs behind his back in what appears to be a cement room. Right away, you're like, oh, that's not my kid.
Right.
That's not my camera. What the hell? So you start watching the footage, and you're trying to figure out what is going on. Is this like a prank? What is this? Something like a weird movie that popped up? And then you start to see a woman's hand come in and start dropping food on the floor, and the kid starts eating the food off the floor. And that's when you realize something's kind of messed up.
It wasn't the fact that his hands and legs were bound.
No, that's pretty messed up too, but you don't know if it's like a weird prank, like whatever.
How would that, what?
So this happened to a man in the Czech Republic. So what he does is,
Oh, God.
he calls the cops. The cops come down. They realize that his signal's getting crossed with somebody else's camera signal in the neighborhood.
Yeah. That happened to us with our baby monitor for my sister.
So the cops start going house to house, and a lot of the neighbors are very helpful. They're like, yeah, check out the house, whatever, it's not a big deal. They end up coming to the house of, I think, 31 and 33-year-old Clara and Katerina Mauerova. They're sisters. They live in this nice yellow house with a red roof. And the cops are looking around, and they're not noticing anything right away. And then they notice that there's a door that's under the steps, kind of like a Harry Potter style thing. Mm-hmm. Leads to like a cellar area.
Yeah.
And the cops are like, well, what's in here? And they're like, well, we don't know. We don't have a key for it. The landlord hasn't given us a key. We've never been in there. And the cops are like, okay, can we go in there? They're like, well, I don't know. The landlord would be pretty upset if you tried getting in there.
But they're the police.
So the police get the fire department there. They chop down the door. Immediately, they're hit by a stench.
Oh, no. Harry Potter.
Shit. Human filth. They open the door. Inside, they find a boy about the age of 7 or 8 years old named Andre, or Andrej. He's bound, just like in the video, and the cops immediately arrest Clara and Katerina, and they find out that Clara is this boy's mother. She also has another son and a daughter that comes down from upstairs. So Andre is 8 years old. He's the one that was bound. She had another son named Jacob, who I believe they picked up from school, who was like 9 years old. And they also had a 14-year-old daughter named Annika. So the 14-year-old daughter comes down. She's holding a teddy bear, and she's got the mental age of like an infant. There's obviously something wrong with her, right?
Yeah.
So the cops try talking to her to figure out what's going on, and they're like, okay, well, we have the 2 women in custody. We'll interrogate them. We have to do something with the kids. So they drop the kids off at a group home. So the kids go to a group home, and that night, Annika goes missing. They're like, did somebody kidnap this girl? Did she run away? What the heck? She's 14 years old. She has the freaking brain capacity of an infant. Like, what the fuck is going on? So the cops try looking for her. They can't find anything. While they're doing that, they're interrogating the boys. The one that was tied up and the other brother.
They're interrogating him?
Well, like, trying to get the info about, like, what's going on, right?
Okay.
Because most people right away won't talk. But these 2 right away were just like, this has been the worst couple years of our lives. We've been beaten, tortured, sexually assaulted. We'll get into the details of how bad it got. But essentially what they got out of it was that Annika was adopted. So they start interviewing Clara, who's the mother of these boys. And Clara starts telling this story. She says, one day her sister Katerina contacted her and said that she has this girl named Annika. She's a little girl. She helped her escape from the sex trade. She was in a sex ring. She got her out of this sex ring. They need somewhere to like lay low for a while because the people are going to be looking for her. They can't go to the cops. They can't go to anybody because there's people everywhere. They have to just lay low with her, right? So what they do is they keep Annika at Clara's house with the 2 boys. And, you know, at the start of it, it seems nice. She kind of acclimates to the family. And over time, they start to... Katerina, who's the older sister, because Clara and Katerina are sisters, right? Mm-hmm. She starts telling her that, like, Annika has really bad health problems. She's got leukemia, kidney failure. She's going blind and deaf, so she has to have regular hospital visits. So a couple times a week, Katerina takes Annika to the hospital to get treatment and stuff. But only Katerina. Claire is not allowed to go. Which right away for me would be like red flag. You're telling me I have a kid that I adopted who's got cancer and I can't go to their house?
Yeah, what?
So, or not their house, their hospital, and like keep an eye on them. So whatever. She just accepts that she's not allowed to go to the hospital for the treatments, and
so only the aunt was taking her?
Exactly. So she was like, as long as she's getting the treatment, it's fine. So then Clara starts getting texts from Annika's doctor, which, like, text messages from a doctor is a little suspect. She met the doctor once. She got a text message to meet him outside to talk about stuff. It was the middle of the night. She got in the car. It was a dark car. She couldn't see his face. He was, like, covering everything up. And he basically told her that, you know, Annika's pretty sick. Here's her medical records. And the woman was, like, a little suspicious. And he showed her that he had, like, a diplomatic passport, which is like, okay, this guy's obviously legit. So she immediately trusts him, right? She then starts getting weird texts for treatments for Annika. The weirdest one that I've heard is... basically, Annika's treatment, I don't know how to explain this to you. If I were to text you and say, hey, your daughter that you're looking after, she needs, like, to drink this twice a day, this, that, this. Oh, by the way, you're going to need to rub her genitals for a few hours until she starts to feel better. How would you react to that?
No.
What do you mean no?
Not gonna do that.
But it's for your dying daughter. Do you not care about her?
That's not gonna help her in any way.
But I'm a doctor.
No, you're not.
But I showed you my passport.
Okay, I have a passport. You want to see mine?
Right.
I'm a doctor too then.
Exactly. Right away, to me, this is like shouting red flags. Any logical person, multiple steps so far in this story, would be like, there's something fucked up going on here, right? And then when she starts getting texts saying, hey, you got to rub this 13-year-old girl's genitals for hours.
What the?
Yeah, so the bad news was that Annika was going blind, having heart failure, all this other stuff, right? So in 2006, so that was in 2005. In 2006, Clara is like neglecting her boys to take care of Annika at this point because she's so sick. So she needs her full attention. So what she does is she says, hey, sister, Katerina, I'm going to need you to start taking care of my boys because I'm taking care of Annika full time. And the sister's like, okay, I can do that. So at this point, Clara tries to adopt Annika, but the doctor texts her back and says that she can't because they won't let her live with her family because her sons are too mean to Annika. The solution? What do you think the solution would be? If your boys are being too mean to your adopted daughter, what would your solution be to fix that?
I'd be like, smarten up or get out.
Your 9-year-old boys?
Or I'd be like, go live with your auntie.
She's living with them now.
Oh my god. Well, I don't know.
Well, they were staying with the grandparents for a bit, but they have them back now, right? So it would just be like, can you stay with the grandparents for a bit? Something like that, right? Instead, the doctor says you have to, quote unquote, cure the boys' bad behavior with, quote unquote, physical therapy, or, beat them, lock them up, scrape them with forks, basically torture them.
The heck?
So she's like, oh, doctor's orders.
So mine was fine then.
Doctor's orders. Let's just go along with this idea. Right? So she starts to beat the boys. It happens for a few months, and then the doctor messages her back and says that it isn't working. The only way that you're going to be able to adopt Annika is if we do like one final thing. We have to take them to a cottage to do what they call shock therapy. So he gives her directions to a cottage in the middle of woods, like the middle of fucking nowhere, where she takes Annika and her 2 boys. And when she gets there, they're greeted by several people, including Katerina, her sister. Okay. Mm-hmm. Another person named Yan, I believe. Another woman who works at a daycare in town. And a guy who was a camp counselor at the boys' summer camp. Okay. So people who work with children.
Yeah.
And at that point, they're told that they all have to take turns locking these boys in cages, beating them, burning them with cigarettes around their genitals.
This is a cult. This is a cult.
You're right. It is a cult, and we'll get to that. So there's 5 adults at this point beating on these boys. They're like waterboarding them. They're sexually assaulting them.
This is so sad.
At one point, they cut off flesh from Andre's butt, and then they burn the open wound with cigarettes, and then force him to eat the skin that they cut off. And then after that, the adults start taking turns eating his cut off skin.
This is disgusting.
This lasted over 8 days. These are people that are daycare workers, people that work with children, summer camp workers. Mm-hmm. Hearing this story, I was like, this is fucked up. These people also pretended to torture Annika so that the boys didn't think that she got out of it somehow, but they only tortured the 2 boys. So 3 of the people were like camp counselors and teachers and stuff like that, and it's pretty fucked up. After that, in September 2006, Clara tries to officially adopt Annika after all of that, because they finally, got the badness out of the boys. But the court requires blood testing before the adoption can go through, right? So they had a daughter of a local actor go to the adoption court and pretend to be Annika because Annika was too sick to appear there, which is what they told Clara. But really it was to like trick the judge into passing the adoption, right? So at this point, Clara adopts Annika and the boys, and they all go back home, and the boys are still locked up and tortured up until the point the cops come, right? So the fucked up part of this is...
all of it?
Well, yeah, they get the... We're going back to the part with where the cops take Annika, put her in the thing. So the boys told the cops all of this happened, right? Remember how Annika ran away from the child care home?
Yes.
That night? Where do you think she went?
I don't know.
She went on a vacation. She went up to the mountains on vacation. So
How? She's 14.
We'll get back to that. In September to December 2007, a 13-year-old boy named Adam Farner was placed in a youth shelter because his parents were abusing him and putting him in child sex rings. He then disappears from the youth shelter in Oslo, Norway, and missing posters of the boy get plastered everywhere. Eventually, he's spotted in another city and placed in a youth home again. When police learn that the real Adam was still in the Czech Republic and with his family. So, this is when the cops find out that the person that they find out that this fake Adam was spotted somewhere. They bring that Adam in. They find out that this kid is Annika, right? The girl.
It's a boy.
Pretending to be a boy.
The girl pretending to be a boy.
Right, 13-year-old girl pretending to be a boy. What's even more fucked up is that the 13-year-old girl is actually named Barbara. And she was 31 years old. Barbara Skrulova. So Barbara Skrulova, a.k.a. Annika, was friends with Katerina, the aunt. Mm-hmm. They were college roommates. They went to school together. Barbara was a professional actor. She got breast reduction and liposuction to look 13 years old. And basically, Annika, a.k.a. Barbara, and Katerina were planning this thing for 5 years to trick Clara into taking her in. They were planning it with Barbara's father, so Annika's real father, and told her that she'd have a permanent home to be in and whatever. Later on, it's found out that Barbara faked her death with Katerina while they were in college, saying that she died from cancer, which like allowed her to pretend to be this 13-year-old girl.
So she was a successful actor. Why does she need to
No, she was successful in like the college area.
Okay, so get a different job then.
Right. So
and support your own self.
Her dad and Katerina helped her do this.
What the?
So it turns out that Barbara, aka Annika's real father, was named Joseph, right? We'll get back to him. So remember Adam Farner, the boy that Annika pretended to be when she ran away?
Yes.
So turns out that Adam Farner's real father, the real Adam Farner's father, and all the people that tortured the boys at the cottage, Barbara, Katerina, and her dad are all part of a cult that broke off from a religious movement called the Grail Movement. So they're a cannibalistic cult that torture children to cleanse their spirit and call themselves ants. That's their nickname for themselves. So Barbara's father, Joseph, was the cult master, and he saw himself as like a messiah, and he groomed Barbara to act like she was basically the equivalent of Jesus. like
God.
an idol that people would look up to.
Told you so, the cult.
So throughout the story, cops are starting to put all this together, and they're realizing how fucked up this is, and they realize that this Joseph guy that was Barbara's dad that helped them plan all this, they think that he was the doctor the whole time,
Okay.
but they don't have enough proof to put anything on him.
All right.
So all this happens, and they talk to Clara, the mother of the boys, and she basically says, I didn't know about any of this. I was tricked into it by my sister and this girl that I thought I was helping, who I adopted. So when all this has happened, after the cannibalism, the rape, all that stuff that they did to these boys, I think this is the part that angers me the most. So all the people at the cottage that night were tried and put into prison. So Clara, the mother of the two boys, got 9 years in prison for years of torture and abuse of her boys. Mm-hmm. The sister, or the aunt, Katerina, got 10 years in prison. Barbara, a.k.a. Annika, one of the people that was there as well, was her brother, her real brother, and the 2 or 3 other people at the cottage who tortured the boys. Mm-hmm. Each got 5 years in prison.
That's it?
They never caught the dad, aka the doctor. And right now, as of right now, all of these people are out walking free.
What the heck?
So
I thought in Czechoslovakia they had the death penalty like
this
right
is
away.
this is some shit that happened in real life. Like, you can look up this story. The issue with this too is I had to get a lot of this information from a YouTube channel. I'll give you guys a quick video. It's called The Disturbing Case of the Mauerova Family. It was by Bella Fiore on YouTube, if you guys want to know more about this case. Or you can also check out the Kurim Case, or the Mauerova Family, on the Creep It Real podcast, which is 2 women who talk about like weird stuff like this. They had a lot of insight, and the issue with it is because it happened in the Czech Republic, all of it was written in Czech. Mm-hmm. So these people went through and they found translations for all this stuff through the news articles and stuff. Yeah. So this is all pieced together from what we have. But shit like this actually happens. People pretend to be children and get adopted and do fucked up stuff.
That's just so strange.
So my question to you is, do you think Clara was in on this? The mother of the 2 boys? Knowing all the red flags that popped up and what she kept going with?
No, because I feel like she probably is stupid enough to like believe her sister.
So you feel like she's just stupid?
Yeah. Like if her sister, like Katrina was her older sister, right?
Yeah, like
I feel like she'd
2
just be
years
like,
older?
okay, yeah, like I'll help this girl. Like, oh, okay, yeah, this is the way you're supposed to do it. Okay, like.
Right, but once they start saying you have to abuse your boys and can't like eat a piece of their skin.
Man, some people are like that. They'll just do whatever you tell them to do.
That's unbelievable to me. Because I thought she definitely had to be involved.
How do you think any of this stuff happened then?
I think she definitely had to be involved.
Yes, she was involved because
No,
her
I
sister
mean,
was
I
telling
think
to
that
do
her
it.
sister came up to her and said, hey, we got this cult that's going on and we need 2 boys.
But then, like, why was what was the point of, like, this, like, 14-year-old girl then?
I don't know, to have somebody on the inside. Somebody from the cult.
I don't get it. People
So
are
do you think
stupid.
Barbara, who ended up being Annika, do you think she's mentally ill? Or do you think she just liked the idea of, like, acting and playing a role and, like, all this stuff?
Well, both.
Do you think she actually has, like, the mind of a toddler? Or, like, what's the situation?
I don't think she could have a mind of a toddler if she went to college and was okay, or, like, was an okay actor and stuff like that. And to think of all of this stuff, like that, you have to have a more developed mind than a toddler.
I don't know. There's some psychopathic serial killers out there that have the brain capacity of 4-year-olds. Serial killers. They got away with it. Like Otis Toole. Yeah. So Orphan, this all happened, I believe, 2005 to 2007. Orphan came out in 2009. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty interesting stuff that I wanted to share with you. I went down this rabbit hole all day today because I knew we were going to be watching Orphan, and that new story came out, and I was like, Jesus Christ, this is just like the gold mine of fucked up stories.
Yeah. Like, it's just very, very messed up.
So how are you feeling right now learning all of this? Do you want to go adopt a kid with me?
No.
Do you think that these stories could be detrimental to people who want to adopt children?
No.
No, you don't think it'll affect it at all?
No.
I feel like
this is a very, very rare case.
Right, but I feel like it would make me pause for a second, personally. But I'm also paranoid as fuck.
Like, it seems bad of me to say it, but, like, I would never do an emergency adoption.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, okay, yeah, I'll take this kid. Have no idea what kind of kid it is. Like, nothing. Like, you'd have to do some sort of, like, meet and greet.
Okay, what about this? Your brother comes up to you and says, hey, here's a kid that I saved from a sex ring, and we need to put them in your care immediately, and you can't tell anybody
I'd say,
about this.
Danny, hold the phone. I'm not equipped to take care of this child. Why don't we take them to social services and they can deal with it?
Fucking right. Yeah, this is... You know what I would say?
What?
Get a life.
Oh my God. Is it over then?
I don't know.
Oh, what the heck?
Yeah, I don't know.
Get a life. No, but that's right though. Like, you're not equipped to take care of these people or this kid.
Right.
Like, take them to someone who can actually take care of it.
Yeah, this whole thing blows my mind because reading these stories, like, under no circumstances in my life would I go through any of this stuff that these people did or said or, like, are saying happened. Like, the second a kid that I adopted starts showing psychopathic tendencies and starts pouring bleach in my coffee, I would probably just drop them off at a psych center and be like, yo, this is it. You're, like, not going to get out of here. You have to be under care until they completely say, hey, there's not a chance you're going to do anything, and you're an adult now, and you're, you know.
Yeah.
Even though it's tough to say, like, you don't risk that shit these days. Then you get people like Elliot Rodger out there shooting up fucking college campuses and stuff.
Right, yeah.
And then, yeah, just having somebody come up to you and be like, hey, you're basically going to be witness protection. Let's not get the cops involved.
Yeah.
That's pretty fishy. And then, like, faking the adoption and stuff. And, like, how crazy they went with, like, hiring an actor's daughter to fucking play the kid in adoption court.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy to me.
Yeah.
You seem pretty, like, disturbed by this whole thing. You don't really know what to say.
Well, it's just messed up. And, like, it's a very rare case. But I just don't get why people are like this.
Right. There's another similar case like this that we can talk about one day that you're not super familiar with. And I'm thinking what we should do is watch the documentary series on it. It's called Mommy, Dead, and Dearest. And it's on, I know it's on Crave, but it's an HBO series, so we should watch that. So if listeners out there are interested in stuff like that, I would recommend watching that. It's about a girl named Gypsy Rose. And I don't want to say much more because me and Melissa will watch that. But yeah, I hope this didn't creep you guys out too much because I just found this stuff interesting. And yeah, I hope Melissa did too.
Oh, it's just weird.
You don't find it interesting though?
No.
Okay, well.
Like, I'll listen to it, but, like, this is not something that I would just go and be like, oh, what?
Well, I hope the rest of you are different and stuck around for this because, yeah, it's interesting to me. So I would recommend doing your own research on this and keeping updated with the first story, especially. And then coming back next week because we will probably have something a little bit more lighthearted.
Yes,
I'm going to
please.
do an episode on Troll 2 with Shane in the next couple weeks, so you can keep an eye out on that. And other than that, Halloween's starting soon. So I'm going to be doing Inktober for Halloween. So
Halloween is already started.
You can, for all of October, actually. So you can follow my art Instagram at DreadSketch. I haven't done shit all on that in like a year, but I'm going to be posting every day for October. So you guys can follow that. You can follow me on Instagram at LifeWithKennyPod or on Facebook at Life with Kenny Podcast. If you have more stories like this that you're interested in talking about and you actually want to be on the show and talk to me about them, or even just tell me some of these stories over the mic or over the internet, just reach out to me and we can set that up, because I love hearing weird shit. And as long as nobody's going to get hurt by our process, then yeah, let's do it. And Melissa, what do you have to say to me after spending hours and hours researching this stuff?
I'm going to sleep. Get a life.
Okay, well, you get a life too then. Fuck.